The following is a presentation of KSL Sports. First and 12. A total roundup of BYU and Utah football and the expanded Big 12 Conference. Subscribe to the First and 12 podcast. Your hosts are Mitch Harper and Alex Kirry on KSL News Radio.
Hour number 2 of First and 12 is off and running here. Mitch Harper and Alex Kirry with you. Alex, it's been a great show so far talking Big 12. I'm so excited for that college football playoff rankings next week.
Yeah, and I think that it'll be the reveal. I don't know. We get psyched out. We psych ourselves up for the rankings every week thinking the committee's just going to go on its own and think totally out of the box. And then you watch the rankings and you go, did they just cheat off of somebody else's homework here?
But you know what? A committee that does think outside the box, it's us, and it's our Big 12 Power Rankings.
Come on.
The Big 12 Power Rankings. A weekly rank of all 16 programs, from the elite to the bottom dwellers.
We are no respecters of persons, Mitch. We don't care what you've done in the past. We don't care what we think you're going to do in the future. Right now, it's just about what you did basically over the weekend, and maybe even a stretch of just a couple of weeks to be able to get these Big 12 Power Rankings. Excuse me. Some of these are pretty darn easy because you only have a couple of undefeateds in conference play still and only one undefeated at the top of the conference. BYU stays for the second week in a row. Was it just 2 weeks in a row they've been in this thing? Yeah, because Texas Tech lost. Okay, so BYU 1, Cincinnati 2.
How about that?
And we're in week 10, man.
In the Big 12.
We're in the
BYU
Big 12.
And Cincinnati atop the Big 12. What world
in
is
football? I don't know. Texas Tech 3, I'm okay with that.
Yes.
They absolutely rolled an Oklahoma State team that I don't think you get an idea of what your team is doing when you beat up on Oklahoma State. But Texas Tech, man, they needed that to get right. We haven't said anything about it, but Hammond's injury to that ACL, it poses an interesting dilemma for Coach McGuire because he's going to have to figure it out at the quarterback spot against BYU. And who do they play this weekend?
Kansas State this week.
Kansas State this week. In Manhattan?
In Manhattan.
And then they got to go back to Lubbock and play BYU
early
the week
morning
after.
game.
Who the heck are these is it just going to end up being
I would expect it probably be Morton, but now teams have to just lock in on Morton. And look, they got other options too, but still that nice comfort that where they had, okay, if Morton's unavailable, we've got a really solid backup. Even though Hammond, though, after the Utah game, I think his performances were regressing.
Yeah, no,
he was not building off of that play against Utah, but still, Texas Tech, I think that if you look at still their roster, they probably still got the best roster in the league, but hey, you still lost a game, and you're not going to be behind BYU and Cincinnati. Number 4, Houston. The Cougs are 7-1. Little bit of a byproduct of the schedule so far. Weak schedule, and the toughest opponent that they faced, Texas Tech, they lost to them. So Houston comes in at 4. But again, as we've discussed, Houston's got everything in front of them.
Well, and not just that. BYU, Cincinnati, Texas Tech, Houston. That's your top 4 in week 10.
2 years ago, these programs were at the cellar of the league, and they couldn't compete. And what a glow up for these teams to really rise to the top in somewhat short order, only year 3 for those teams, and they're in the mix to go to Arlington, and maybe 2 of them could be in that game.
So 3 of the 4 of the top 4 of our power rankings are quote unquote the new teams, the new guys on the block, and they're figuring it out.
The
Good
new teams too that were relatively new to power conference living, a program that's had a lot of time in a power conference is number 5, Utah. They crushed Colorado, and they jump up 3 spots. I just thought that was an impressive performance from the standpoint of it could have been easy to fold after a deflating rivalry loss.
Big time.
And for them to respond emphatically and just crush Colorado, I thought that was kind of a message that Utah's not just going to fade like they did last season. I thought that was really impressive by Utah.
Yeah, underrated good luxury item that Utah has at this point of the season is a miniature controversy at quarterback. You see Burt Ficklin when he does, and then you go, yeah, Devin Day, he's 78%, coach. I think he's going to be good for this weekend. You go, you know what? I don't know. Maybe we won't.
It's the same thing that Joey McGuire had after the Utah game where you're like, okay, like Hammond's feeling pretty good. And look, we'll see what Ficklin becomes when there's more film on him now with these teams. But he looked really good in that win. Number 6 is Arizona State. ASU dealing with so many injuries. I mean, Jordan Tyson was out. Sam Levitt got banged up
Kept
twice.
going
They had
back
to go
and
to
forth.
Jeff Sims. Still, very good football team, but 3 losses overall, 2 in the Big 12. But they're always going to be a tough out. It's just, a lot of injuries. They got to get healthy.
Next up, you've got the folks TCU. I have no idea what to think about TCU right now. They kind of struggled against West Virginia this weekend.
They did.
And I don't know, like Sonny Dykes and his guys, we've been trying to give them the benefit of the doubt all season long. I feel like they've hung out between that 5 and 8 number all year, which means, of course, we don't know what you are. And frankly, by the end of it, after it's all said and done, I don't know if they're going to be anywhere near the top of these other teams in the rankings there, which is wild. You think about the TCUs, the Baylors that we were kind of putting as those dark horse teams, and they're nowhere to be seen right now in these power rankings. Number 8, Iowa State. After that loss to BYU, they've lost 3 in a row now. They've lost 3 in a row. You could easily have put them even further down just to really go after them and say, you got to win. You can't win. You can't lose 3 in a row. We're going to punish you even further down in the basement. But Iowa State's a really good team that has no idea how to win in recent weeks.
Number 9 is Kansas State. They're finding ways to win, and they are climbing up this thing, and they could be a real interesting squad down the stretch run in the Big 12 race. Number 10 is Baylor. The Bears are just mediocre this season. I mean, that's what they are, and I think that's no surprise there in the back half of the Big 12 power rankings. Number 11, UCF. We'll see them back in action this week, but it feels a little high to me. I don't know if UCF maybe is the 11th best team, but then the teams below them, you're like, well, yeah, I'll go with Scott Frost's squad, but I don't know if they're that good, if that makes sense.
Yeah, 3 out of the, the next, Arizona, Kansas, Colorado, West Virginia. I'm pretty comfortable thinking that UCF is better than at least 3 of those 4 teams. You know what I mean? Like, you look at it and you go, maybe Arizona, but Kansas is just underperforming big time. 12 is Arizona. We'll see what happens when the Wildcats, they've had a couple of bad losses in a row of just tight games that have not felt good. 12 feels low for them. Not this week. They should be right there. It just feels like that they really have the potential to finish a little bit higher, even just over the next couple of weeks here. Kansas at number 13, embarrassing loss at home to Kansas State, who I think everybody kind of already wrote off this year. And I mean, look, Kansas State, Arizona, UCF, these teams have no shot at going to the Big 12 championship game. It's just wild to me that some of those teams we thought for sure were going to be in the mix at the end of the year.
And we thought, too, remember with Kansas, they were a favorite at home over Kansas State. Not that that tells the outcome of a game, but they were viewed as a team that should win this game, and they lose and they get blown out. Missed opportunity, and you end the Jalen Daniels era against K-State with no wins. I mean, just such a missed opportunity. It feels like Kansas, from our first glimpse of Big 12 Media Day back in 2023, when it was the Jalen Daniels show. He's got the Apple Watch as a necklace, and he's the preseason Offensive Player of the Year. They have completely regressed, and it feels like they're moving closer to the Kansas of old than this new look, innovative offense, what they thought they were trending towards. Colorado is taking a massive step back, and then West Virginia showed a little bit of fight, but they're still not too competitive in this league, and just 16, you know who that is. That's Oklahoma State. They're going to be living in that thing for at least until next year. I mean, Oklahoma State is bad. They are terrible.
So we're getting the Sharpie out for them to be at 16?
I think it is Sharpie. There's nothing they can do the rest of the way that's going to move them up from 16. I mean,
14 conference losses in a row dating back to last year.
They are so bad.
Embarrassing.
And let's take a break. On the other side, we'll get to more Big 12 football talk. We'll look ahead to what's coming up next in the Big 12 here on First and 12 on KSL News Radio.
Get all the talk about the Big 12 and college football playoff. JJ and Alex on your drive home. Afternoons 3 to 6 on 97.5. The KSL Sports Zone.
You can subscribe to JJ and Alex wherever you get your podcasts. Just search JJ and Alex on the KSL Sports app, or First and 12, available on all podcasting platforms as well. Mitch Harper and Alex Kirry with you. Big 12 football getting ready for Week 10. Busy slate around the Big 12. We'll look ahead to that coming up in the show. But it's really interesting in this 16-team Big 12, Alex. I feel like even though it's year 3 of kind of like the new look Big 12, year 2 with this 16-team iteration. I think still the identity is trying to be figured out with this conference. And also, there's still this feeling of trying to figure out who are going to be the annual contenders in the league. And once again, we're figuring out that this league, it's very challenging to maintain success year after year. But, it begs the question with a team like BYU, who's won 19 of its last 21 games, and teams like Cincinnati at the top and Houston near the top, could these relatively new power conference teams in the Big 12 become the faces of this league and be the flag bearers of this conference going forward, you think?
Here's the thing. I started to think about it, and I'm like, we get so caught up in whether or not the Big 12 is going to get the same type of respect across the rest of the country that other conferences do. And, well, you got to have a bell cow if that's the case. Except for right now in college football, they're having this weird renaissance of you don't need that. I mean, look at the SEC. Who are the best teams in the SEC? You tend to say. I'm telling you, Mitch, like that feels so fake to me. How many times
I'm kind of bought in on them?
After last week, for sure.
I know Big 12 fans don't want to hear that, but
no. But after last week, for sure. But why would we be bought in on Texas A&M ever when those guys haven't won anything significant, haven't been a part of it? When was the last time they even were in a national championship discussion? It was like in the 1940s. This is a team that you look at now and you go, but again, they're also not a team that the SEC props up and goes, that's one of our best teams. They certainly don't prop up and go, have you guys seen Vanderbilt lately? But that's where we're at here. You're talking Texas A&M, you're talking Vanderbilt. You're talking about teams that you look across. You're talking about Indiana, who's number 3 in the Big Ten, in the country, or number 2 rather, and they're in the Big Ten. And by the way, they've done this 2 years in a row now. So are they the class of the Big Ten? Absolutely not. But here's the thing about the Big Ten. I don't know who is aside from Ohio State. We've been waiting for Oregon to take over. They almost did last year, and then they flopped and didn't at the end. They are good. But you look at it and you go, what does a bell cow mean nowadays? Georgia is the 3rd or 4th best team in the SEC right now. It's kind of crazy, right? Because I don't know if they're that bad or if they're that good even. I don't know where it's at. So trying to lean on these things sometimes, I go, do you need that? Now, on a week in and week out basis, you have to have consistent, or on a year in and year out basis, you've got to have consistency. How consistent can Vanderbilt be going forward? Who knows? They've never been consistent in our lifetime. Indiana's never been good, ever, since we've been alive, Mitch. Those are 2 of the best teams in the country right now, and that sounds so freaking weird to say. So what changed? Everything in college football. The money stuff is all weird. I mean, you look at the Brian Kelly firing this week, and the other firings that are rolling out, right? And the buyouts are this insane numbers and whatever, and they're just not allowing these guys to stay in there very long anymore. So expectations for teams are going to be almost like an NFL-type model now, which is, are they going to be good this year? Maybe. Like, does the AFC have to have a quote-unquote bell cow? They did for so long, right, with the Patriots. But when I was growing up, the Patriots sucked forever, right? The NFL is the new model, which is these guys are all getting paid, and year in and year out with free agency and with all the things that kind of move everything around, it's a freaking crapshoot, man. And I kind of love it. Teams like BYU, I think, need to get, and Utah or whomever, they need to get less worried about we need to be the dominant team in the conference and more of hey, on any given year, we could be good enough to just go straight to the college football playoff and we'll contend. And then they need to worry about the fact that Utah and BYU, that's the biggest rivalry in the conference, and it should be. And other teams need to work on rivalries. Like Kansas State, you guys need to work on that rivalry, dudes. Don't call it a rivalry. I'm so sick of Utah and Colorado being called a rivalry. It's not a freaking rivalry.
Yeah, that was ridiculous last week.
So maybe we just need to shift what our thinking is on this whole thing, Mitch, because we've been begging for which team's going to rise to the top. It's like, dude, every year it's going to be somebody different. It has been so far. And right now the SEC and the Big Ten, they're all looking around going, are we having a meltdown? Are we having a no, you're having a renaissance. You should be glad these teams who are never good are good in your conference again, because we used to make fun of you guys like crazy because you could only have 1 or 2 good teams.
The problem, though, for the Big 12 is that they need the bell cows more than ever because the media and the college football landscape is trying to silence the Big 12. I mean, it's all about the SEC and the Big 10. They need those built-in brands that every year get the benefit of the doubt. I think that's why it's important for the Big 12, because I agree with you. I do think that the NFL model is getting applied to college football where the margins are so thin and it feels like almost any game comes down to a field goal at the end of it, and its margins are tight.
Who'd have thunk it? Indiana football and the Indianapolis Colts are suddenly good again. I don't know how they did it. But because the talent's pretty darn good.
But for the Big 12, I believe they do need a couple bell cows, and I do think that BYU and Houston could be those programs potentially. Houston, they got to work on their fan support. They got to work on leveling that up, but they've got some prominent
people to
boosters.
come to the games, and
Because I think that stuff matters. But when you're talking about the atmospheres, because what do we hear? SEC atmospheres. You go into these 100,000 seat stadiums, Death Valley at night, this and that. When A&M rolled in there and just won by 30. But the thing is that that's where the Big 12, I think, needs to almost get that benefit of the doubt in some regards, where Big 12 teams don't get that at all. And if you have annually a BYU, Arizona State, where they're consistent bell cow teams, then it's like, well, this team's on the rise too, paired up with these bell cows. Suddenly you're looking at 5 or 6 teams in a preseason top 25, and then it's a great starting position. And then you get that ability to suddenly have, you got quality losses, because you never get that going into a season in the Big 12. Whereas the SEC, even with those teams, A&M and Vandy being the best right now, they started off in a league where this season, where those bell cows, Georgia and Alabama, just by default, got the benefit of, hey, they're top 7 teams because, well, they're Georgia and Alabama. And I think that's where the Big 12 needs its bell cows to emerge at some point eventually, and maybe these new faces could do that.
It is interesting because I think about the Texas A&M, the way they're talked about every year, like the brand to me defies all odds.
And honestly, I'd be remiss too, because when you say Texas A&M, you think money. Texas Tech too. I think they're going to be that brand that a lot of the media and people nationally say
they have kind of done that.
They got a rich roster. They're going to be in the mix.
Yeah,
and I think you kind of need that in this conference. I think the programs that probably have the best chance are probably Texas Tech, BYU, and Arizona State to be the annual contenders. I would say Utah, but I just don't know on Whittingham. I don't know what the timeline is yet on Whit.
In this conference, who has made the college football playoff in its history?
Cincinnati,
right? Not as a Big 12 member,
but in the American.
But what was impressive about that was what? That was the 14 playoff.
Yes.
Like when you were having to,
and they beat Notre Dame to get there.
And I'm telling you, like, what's funny about that is that's a conference issue where they were like, because it's the American, right? Oh, the American? Yeah, that's cute. Nice little story. We'll see you guys in the playoff. We'll allow it this year, I guess. Right?
It's what it felt like.
That's the way Cincinnati's looked at. Cincinnati has more college football playoff appearances than Texas A&M has had infinitely, right? Like
fair.
You never talk about, but that's how it is. That's how it is. And then, they snuck in. Well, they backdoored their way in with the little guy's way of getting into the college football playoff. There's no such thing anymore. And then after that, it's what? Oklahoma? No, not Oklahoma State. I don't know who else. I mean, like, who've gotten into the recent TCU? Obviously.
Yes, TCU in 2022.
And then after that, it's like, nobody's really, not really. Arizona State, really, really good team last year. A half of a quarter of play away from being able to go to the next level.
As we wrap it up, I know we're against it, but I think, though, too, long term, and this is kind of galaxy brain thinking, as my kids would say, from a financial standpoint, long term, for media rights in 2030 and 2031, you got to have those bell cows, because that can then maybe enhance the pockets too with more money if you can get some consistent brands. But it's a fascinating discussion in the Big 12. Let's take a break. Let's look ahead to what's next in Week 10. Pretty good slate in Big 12 football. It's here on 1st and 12 on KSL News Radio.
The following is a presentation of KSL Sports. 1st and 12. A total roundup of BYU and Utah football and the expanded Big 12 Conference. Subscribe to the 1st and 12 podcast. Your hosts are Mitch Harper and Alex Kirry on KSL News Radio.
First and 12 rolls on. Hope all of you are having a fantastic Tuesday night. Mitch Harper and Alex Kirry with you. Coming from Broadcast House in Salt Lake City. It's time to look ahead in Big 12 football. Week 10, can you believe it, folks? November football is on the horizon this weekend. Let's break it down.
The week ahead. Matchups that have us the most excited about the week to come in the Big 12.
All right, first up here, Mitch. I mean, I'm telling you, the games just keep getting more interesting here, and I'm trying to look and see teams with buys right off the bat, though. BYU and TCU, who happen to BYU's going to go to Texas Tech the week after their bye, and then they host TCU. And so it's those are going to be, you're going to see fewer buys as we get along here toward the end of the season. And right off the bat, let's go with some of these early games here. West Virginia going to Houston. Man, Houston's going to be 8-1 at the end of this week, I would assume. But that's a big one. You got to play the game at 10 a.m. this week and figure it out. And that's a large one that's looming for Houston. But I think people look and they go, well, we want to see Houston playing a team that might give them a little bit of a run for their money. UCF goes to Baylor. That one's going to also be an early one on ESPNU. I don't know what to think about either of these teams, Mitch. I'm not sure who is even favored in a game like that because Baylor's been playing so poorly and UCF has just been meh, and they were off last week, and so you kind of forgot about them even after a week.
Yeah, this is going to be a really interesting spot for both teams to really tell us where the direction of their seasons are going to really ultimately end up this year. And I think for UCF, they feel pretty good about where things are at with Scott Frost in year one. Baylor, I think they're just trying to stack up some wins and be a little more respectable in the Big 12 standings. But what's always interesting about November football, Alex, is that it feels like teams that are maybe thinking ahead to the portal, thinking ahead to coaching carousel, they can be distracted and be checked out in some games, and that could have a factor into some outcomes of ball games where I feel a little more confident. UCF could be a little more locked in, but we'll see what ends up happening there. Arizona State goes at Iowa State, 10 a.m. Mountain Time on TNT. Interesting spot where both teams badly need a win. I mean,
somebody's going to be 5-4 after this one,
That's
Mitch.
what's crazy. The best 5-3 football teams maybe you're going to find in college football. That's a high-level matchup that feels top 25 quality, but it's two 5-3 teams and speaks again to the depth in this conference.
Yeah, and that the conference, the scheduling is funny because we say at the beginning of the year, oh, this is going to be a tough schedule. We have no idea. This game right here has become a wild one because on the schedule, I think early in the season we thought, wait till those two teams are undefeated and they meet up against one another on November 1st, the very end of the weekend, and no such thing. There's not a small number next to either one of them, which is a wild thing, just like you were saying. It feels like a top 25 matchup. Certainly the talent's there for these two teams, but they met in the Big 12 championship game last year, and now things have changed dramatically. Let's get to some of these teams who have rankings going on. How about Texas Tech, who's goes to Kansas State? This is a sneaky, scary game. Mitch, is there a way that Kansas State totally revitalizes their entire season when they host Texas Tech this weekend there in Manhattan? I mean, look, I will say Avery Johnson is uber talented, and every game he's been in, I don't care what has happened with his team, he's played usually pretty darn well in these games, and he is still a really, really tough target to take down.
Kansas State's defense is showing up, and I think that's what's been impressive. The team that we saw all the way back in week 0 where we, even despite the loss, felt like, okay, they're going to be that tough physical football team on the defensive side that didn't show up at all in September. That's starting to appear in games. You saw that last week. That's going to give Kansas State the chance. They got to be a far more physical football team than Texas Tech. Texas Tech's got the best defense in the Big 12. But I think the questions at quarterback, how healthy is Baron Morton? They lose Will Hammond. You can entertain an idea where K-State wins this game. I think if you're in the Big 12 offices, you're like, please, somebody just do not pull off this upset. We need 2 bids in the college football playoff and level up that drama meter in the conference. But I think you can. It would not shock me in the slightest if Kansas State somehow pulled off that upset. What would shock me is if Oklahoma State got a win. Even at Kansas, Oklahoma State goes to Lawrence, 2 p.m. on ESPN+. Kansas State, this feels like a great get-right spot, but at the same time, they kind of lost their season a bit last week in their rivalry game. So I'm curious to see how they respond, but I would expect that Kansas should roll, but you just never know. Maybe Oklahoma State and Meekum, who stayed the course and said all the right things of, hey, we're going to stay focused. We still there's good football ahead. Let's see it, buddy, because time's ticking.
Yeah, I mean, look, that looks like a dog of a game, but underneath it all, you got a team who's got a fired coach who they're facing off against, and you got a coach who's basically trying to avoid getting fired, right? I mean, at this point,
Lance Leipold, it's interesting on him because
they love him. They love him there, and he's just not delivered at all.
I think that's turning, though. It feels like it's kind of turning. And look, sometimes you get on social media and feel like it's an echo chamber, but again, they felt like 2 years ago they were knocking on the door of winning the Big 12. You're nowhere close.
Yeah.
You've been passed up by BYU's. You've been passed up by Arizona State's. And you've been a mainstay in this conference
you can't
now
beat your in-state
since
rival.
the beginning. Like
Yeah.
nothing's changed really other than where you got one bowl win a couple years ago, and that was a huge deal for Kansas. But you haven't leveled up with what would appear to have been a franchise quarterback for Kansas. And what's next? Like, it kind of leads you to wonder. Daniels is gone after this year. Does Wisconsin pull the plug on Luke Fickell? With Lance Leipold's connections to Wisconsin, it would seem like it would make a lot of sense, but it's going to be really interesting to see what's next for Leipold. But to your point, they have loved him. I mean, Washington came calling, and then Leipold got a huge contract extension. So it'll be fascinating to see kind of what's next for the Jayhawks. Arizona at Colorado, two teams badly needing a win, 5 p.m. on FS1. I would imagine that Boulder still shows up, but this could be a game where maybe it's the least energized Coach Prime crowd. I think it's noteworthy that it's on FS1. Is the nation kind of done with the Coach Prime story? Because they were a network TV darling.
Right, yeah, I get it. Arizona is not exactly a sexy sell on a game either. But, man, I'm telling you, Arizona right now, they got to have this.
Have it.
They have, and they smell blood in the water with Colorado. They're like, hey, we could actually steal this one away too. So I think they're going to go in there with some confidence because they've lost 2 games in a row when they were leading both of those very good opponents. And I think that, you come off of tough losses like that, it's always a tough deal. And then finally, Cincinnati going to Utah. This, of course, is the big game because ESPN College Game Day is going to be there. Cincinnati comes in highly touted and people going, all right, this is the darling of the season so far for the Big 12, the brand newcomer, because Cincinnati last year, nowhere to be seen at the tops of the conference tables, but they go to Utah. Utah is now back to a spot, I think, from an attitude perspective, they feel phenomenal. Let's see if they can get it done at home. It's going to be very difficult for Cincinnati to win at Utah Rice-Eccles Stadium at night. In the dark. I think we know how good Kyle Whittingham gets his guys dialed up. Let's take another break. Final one, because we're going to get to our predictions next, so don't miss any of it. Stay right here with us. First and 12, KSL News Radio, 102.7 FM and 1160 AM.
We feed your daily Cougar obsession. Listen to Cougar Tracks weeknights at 6:30 on KSL News Radio and on the KSL Sports YouTube page.
Welcome back into First and 12 on this Tuesday evening. Mitch Harper and Alex Kirry with you. A weekly look at Big 12 football. And Week 10 is coming up this weekend. It's a loaded Saturday slate, so that gives us a chance to give our predictions.
First and 12 predictions, scores, blowouts, and more with Mitch and Alex on First and 12.
Let's rapid fire some of these early morning games for the Saturday, November 1st slate. Again, it's just so crazy that we're entering November. The chase to Arlington is heating up. West Virginia at Houston.
West Virginia, Houston, I'm going to go with Houston. They got the hot hand right now. I think it continues. West Virginia just doesn't have the dogs to be able to compete with really anybody right now, but they did stick for a minute with TCU. I'm going to say Houston wins this one big, though. I'm going to say at least a 2-score game.
Likewise, I'm going to go with the Cougs as well. UCF at Baylor.
I would love to say that playing at McLean Stadium gives them an advantage to Baylor, but it's just not been the case this year. You know what? I'm going to say that Central Florida smells blood in the water. They go in there and they steal a win from a very, very depressed Baylor team. I'm going to go UCF with the win there.
I'll go with Baylor. I think Baylor finds a way offensively to put up numbers that UCF can't contend with. So I'm going to go with the Bears in this one.
Just enough. They get just enough to
Just
be able to
enough.
Okay, how about this one? A game that we were expecting to be two ranked teams at this point of the year, but they're not. They're both 5-3, looking to avoid being 5-4. Arizona State going to Iowa State. This is Darren Ames again. Arizona State, do they have what it takes to? I don't know what the Sam Levitt and Jordan Tyson situation is.
This is a game where we have to kind of almost wait until tomorrow. It feels like with the availability report, but I will tentatively say Iowa State because I do think they made progress from that disaster against Colorado a few weeks back. The BYU performance showed progress, showed some fight, but it feels like Iowa State's season's a little bit lost, and I never doubt Kenny Dillingham's team is going to show up. But I'll go with Iowa State barely.
If Sam Levitt's playing and if Jordan Tyson's playing, I'm going to say Arizona State steals that one away from Iowa State there in Ames. How about Texas Tech going to Kansas State? Is this a possibility for a chaos upset type of a vibe? Are you still not there? You're not sold on the Kansas State Wildcats.
I could get there. I really could. I think Kansas State's shown some good stuff the past few weeks, but I've got to go with Texas Tech. I love the personnel. They always find answers this season. Even in the loss against Arizona State when they were down big, they stormed back. I think Texas Tech gets it done, but I wouldn't be shocked if it's like by 3 points. I think it's going to be close.
I think Kansas State hangs, but not till the very, very end. I think that they've just lost too many times this year for you to feel comfortable with them being able to put it on another team at the top of the table. So I'm also going to go with Texas Tech.
How about Oklahoma State at Kansas? I'm going Kansas. You make that one easy.
Forgot this was a game until 2 minutes ago, Mitch. I apologize. I'm going to go with the Kansas Jayhawks as well, even though they don't deserve all this. They don't deserve like a guaranteed win type of a feel.
Oklahoma State's so bad.
They're that bad.
Arizona at Colorado. I will go with Coach Prime and the Buffs to bounce back somehow, some way. I don't feel good about it. I do not, because that team felt like they quit last week, but I think Coach Prime gets enough motivation out of them to get something right in Boulder.
I think Arizona has all this talent. They keep getting so close to stringing it all together. I like Noah Fafita as a quarterback. He's an actual throwing quarterback, and I think he gets it done. I think Caden Salter has gotten so bad week on week that it's just like this new version of him being bad every week. So this is going to be an even worse Caden Salter this week, and I think Arizona goes in and steals a win against Colorado.
This feels like a game, too, where, Arizona, if you don't win this one, do we look at Brent Brennan maybe on a hot seat? I know you know me, I'm always quick to throw someone on a hot seat, but
Mitch is really happy every week to use somebody else's money for a buyout. What's his buyout? Yeah, let's give it to him.
Let's throw him into the hot seat.
What is it? What do we owe him? $22 million. You know what? Give it to him. I don't like him here anymore. Mitch just throws buyout money out like crazy. He doesn't even care.
I was throwing out the buyout money of Scott Satterfield quite a bit, and he has comfortably got some job security now as Cincinnati rolls into Salt Lake City against the Utes. Cincy at Utah. It's college game day. Massive game, not only in the Big 12, but in the national college football schedule in Week 10. How do you see this game playing out, Alex?
I was like, hey, how do they do? We asked our producer this week during our show, hey, how does Utah do with game day in town?
Not good.
2-9.
Yeah, they're not
overall.
good.
Now, they count the 2 Rose Bowl games as quote-unquote game day games. So let's just say it's 2-7 because, getting to the Rose Bowl, winning the conference championship, that's pretty darn good. But they're 2-7 with either game day or big noon kickoff. Which, by the way, how about 3 in a year for Utah that they're a part of? That's pretty darn cool. That's the best marketing ever. But
maybe they should like the Big 12 now.
But you got to freaking win. Yeah. We did not want to be in this conference. We got invited to Big Noon Kickoff, and now we are excited to be in the conference again. But 3 of these big, it's either 2 Big Noon Kickoffs and a game day. That's what you've gotten. Man, you better perform because the other 2 you lost, and you got to perform on this one. I think Utah at home at night is a difficult ask for a Cincinnati team who's not used to doing this type of stuff. I'm going to go Utah with a win. It's going to be at least 10 points there at home with some quarterback running for 130 yards. I don't know who it's going to be yet.
I'm with you. I'm going to go with Utah on this one. I don't like this matchup for Cincinnati. I think Cincinnati's offense is really good. I just don't think they match up well against Utah. Well, it's just one of those games where if they lose by 10, I'm not saying, Cincy's a fraud. I think it's just you don't match up well against Utah.
And look, what did they do well last week? They shut down the passing game from Sawyer Robertson and Baylor. And Utah doesn't have a passing game. They're like, fine, we're just going to run for 380 yards against you. That's no problem. And I think they could do exactly that against Cincinnati, just absolutely run all over them again.
And I think all things considered, Utah relatively healthy. I know Dampier, his status will be interesting to see, but I think Utah, I think they're, at being at home, I like them in this spot. I think it's kind of the spot, the buildup, where since he's got a target yet, I like Utah in this spot. So, and I think that the College game day piece is a fun storyline too, from the standpoint of, are they just tossing the Big 12 a bone to say, hey, we're not coming the rest of the way. Don't even think about it because we're going to go all SEC. Here's your bone, Big 12. Be silent, and you're getting game day for this game. Because I'll admit, Alex, when I saw this got announced for game day,
I was kind of shocked.
I was stunned.
Yeah,
I was like, I didn't even think of that.
Yep.
I was kind of floored, honestly. So that blew me away. And, hey, great opportunity for Utah, and I think they capitalize. Even though history, as you said, has shown that they don't win in these spots, I think they do here.
All right, there you go. Our show's in the books again for this week. We appreciate our producer, Gustavo Rodriguez, who does a phenomenal job every week here with us. And so you want to dip in next week. This time next week, we're going to be talking about the very first college football playoff rankings. For Mitch Harper, I'm Alex Kirry. We'll see you then, everybody. Download the podcast wherever you can find First and 12. It's on all the major platforms, so go check it out for yourself. For Mitch, I'm Alex. See you next time, everybody.